we got to talk about plagiarism. You may have heard the term before. Pause for dramatics. Okay. Plagiarism is copying or using ideas and passing it off as your own. Sometimes we have to borrow information from a source, so that's not always a bad thing to borrow information. Usually, if the assignment is requiring research, if it's some type of research writing, if the borrowed information lacks what's called an in-text citation and a reference page, then it's plagiarized. In-text citation is where you give immediate credit within the text, right next to the borrowed language. The reference page is at the end of the entire document on its own separate page and lists all the sources you used in that paper. You need both to avoid plagiarism in research writing. Don't worry about that in this lecture. That's a separate lecture about APA format. But just so you know, that is one way to avoid plagiarism. There's different types of plagiarism, so I wanted to talk about each one separately. Direct plagiarism is how it sounds. It's where the writer copies an entire sentence, an entire paragraph, or an entire document from start to finish and uses it directly, meaning highlights it, copies, pastes it word for word, puts their name on it, done. No in-text citations. If no in-text citations are included, then it's plagiarized. You also don't want to copy an entire work and throw an in-text citation in there anyway. That's still taking up way too much of someone else's work and passing it off as your own. But like I said, sometimes with research writing, you need to borrow a sentence or two or a little paragraph, but you have to use an in-text citation to avoid that direct plagiarism. Like I said, if you're new to APA, if you're new to research writing and you're like, what is she saying? I don't understand what in-text citations are and APA format. Don't worry. This class will build towards that at a certain point in the semester. Here's a visual example to compare of direct plagiarism. If the original text, say an article about food, and this sentence is written in the article. After interviewing many participants, 92% agreed that cheddar cheese is their favorite. And if I'm like, ooh, I like that sentence, I'm going to use it. And I highlight this, copy, and I paste it into my own Word document. And I start by writing in my own words, what type of cheese is a favorite? And then boop, copy and paste exactly what you're seeing here. This right here is an example of direct plagiarism because I've copied this directly, pasted it into my own paper. To the way it looks like it's my own writing, right? There's no indication that I'm giving credit to anybody in this paragraph. Mosaic plagiarism is the second type of plagiarism. That's a little sneakier. It's where the writer remixes original work to pass it off as their own. Think about a mosaic where it's little tiles collectively that make one piece. It's where parts of sentences from the original work and parts of the author's own work are used together. But I just change out a few words so that it looks, it's okay. I changed out the word original and put unique. See, it's my own writing now. No, if no citations are included, and that's actually not even the correct way to borrow language anyway. If no citations are included, regardless, it's plagiarized. This is not even a summary though, because you can summarize work and include an in-text citation, but that's not a proper way to summarize something by just switching out words here and there. It's still keeping it's still keeping too similar to the original. Let's compare so you can kind of see it better. Cheese is a product used in many recipes. After interviewing many participants, 92% agreed that cheddar cheese is their favorite. If I'm like, okay, I'm going to use some of this. What type of cheese is a favorite? Cheese is a product used in a lot of cooking. After interviewing a lot of people, 92% agreed that cheddar cheese is the best. The phrases underlined is from the original. Cheese is a product used in after interviewing. 92% agreed that cheddar cheese is a favorite. And I'm just switching out their favorite is the best. I'm changing recipes to cooking. All of this is still too close to the original. And it's like a mosaic where it's sprinkled with my writing. And there's no in-text citation. And this is still not a proper way to summarize a source. So this is an incorrect an example of plagiarism as well. We can't just switch out words and say, ta-da, it's my own writing. We got to avoid it. There's also something called self-plagiarism. Be very careful. There are plenty of students, I shouldn't say plenty, but there are students, unfortunately, they may just not know, right? That self-plagiarism can get you in a lot of trouble. And the software we use on Canvas will flag it. It will identify all of these examples. It'll flag anything as direct, mosaic, or self. It can happen. Did you receive an assignment that reminds you of a previous paper you wrote in the same course or another course in the past? If a student uses a previous paper from another class, or even a previous essay from the same class, yep, unfortunately, you are self-plagiarizing. They have to receive permission from both instructors to use their work. You may be thinking, well, I wrote it, why can't I use it for this class? Well, writing is all a process, right? So we have to contribute and add new meaning to it. Thoughts change, sources get updated, ideas change. We can always revise what we originally worked on. So you can always take inspiration from an idea you had in the past, but we've got to add new knowledge to it. That's what keeps writing, communication, and topics alive, is keeping them modern, keeping them relevant. Things change all the time now, so we can always add new, deeper meaning to something. And like I said, Canvas will notify what class the assignment was from and what instructor it was, so be very, very cautious of that. Examples, original text, maybe student wrote a compare-contrast essay in a class from 2 semesters ago and wanted to use it again in the current class they're in. That would be self-plagiarism. Student wrote a personal essay for a scholarship and reuses it for an essay in their class. If the student copies, pastes sentences, paragraphs, or the entire essay, it's all considered self-plagiarism. Paraphrasing, where the author uses valuable information from a source. They find a really good sentence or paragraph and they want to use it, and they reword that entire sentence or paragraph 100% in their own words, and they write that in their own paper. Paraphrasing is a lot more difficult than it sounds because you're summarizing everything completely. You're not changing a few words so that it's like mosaic plagiarism. You're rewording it 100% in your own words. The entire statement, that entire sentence or paragraph must be rephrased entirely with your own language. But if no citations are included with that paraphrase summary that you completed, it's plagiarized. And you may be thinking, well, why? I wrote it in my own words 100%. That doesn't make sense. And that's a valid question, but you took the idea from something still, and you're rephrasing it. So there's nothing wrong with the paraphrase when you're completing research writing. May not be appropriate for every assignment you do, but for research writing, a paraphrase is a good thing. But you've got to make sure you do it correctly, where it's reworded 100% in your own words, and you've got to include that in-text citation that you will eventually learn about, I promise. So again, at that sample of the original text, if I wanted to paraphrase that, maybe something like, a new study found that of all cheese, cheddar is highly popular. Now I have to use the word cheese and cheddar, right? Because that's important for the original source, but I had to reword it as best as possible. More than half of the research study enjoyed it most. Paraphrases are very difficult with any kind of numeric value, any kind of number. Use a direct quote for something like that if you're doing research writing. But paraphrase more of an idea, more of a qualitative information, an idea, not so much a number. That's hard to rephrase. This is a successful way to paraphrase, but if I just turned it in like that, I didn't include any kind of citation of where this study came from. So because I'm lacking that reference citation and citation to it, I'm not giving credit, so it's still plagiarized. It's a correct way to summarize something, but it's lacking an in-text citation. The concept of AI, artificial intelligence, there's no problem using these resources to assist with spelling and grammar. It can actually facilitate the learning process in a great way to teach you along the way about spelling and grammar. I certainly use AI to assist with that as well. When using AI becomes plagiarism is having any type of AI software write everything for you. That goes anywhere between complete sentences and entire paragraphs and entire works. Anything that is completely written in the form of a sentence, phrase, or paragraph or entire work written by AI, that's when it will count as plagiarism. We live in a very digital age right now, and we're constantly adapting. So this is an interesting concept, but we still have to be very careful that we still need to write and create our own original work. So be cautious with that. So to reflect, think about what you just learned. You learned about direct, mosaic, accidental, which could be any of those, and self-plagiarism and paraphrasing. What's the worst type? What do you think? What's the worst type of plagiarism? Worst meaning intentional, intentionally done. Because unfortunately, students may plagiarize for different reasons. They're out of time, so it's desperate. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Laziness, but not understanding how to cite and not being aware of specific APA citation rules and format, these last two bullet points are my job as an instructor to make sure that I guide you to being aware of how to cite and being aware of specific, we use APA format, so specific APA format citation rules. Think about it, because plagiarism's known for academia, of course, but workplace plagiarism can happen too. It's not bound to the academic world. It's always around. So we're here to take care of these two fears of not being aware, not knowing. You're here to learn. You're here to learn how to properly cite information, and I'm here to help you as well. So let me know if you all have any questions about plagiarism at any point in the semester.